thanks for joining me. Slightly different video today. I'm not doing a walk in the New Forest, and I haven't even got Logan with me either. So what am I doing? Well, I'm at Beaulieu in Hampshire, and I'm going to have a little walk round the Beaulieu estate, look at the remains of Beaulieu Abbey, take a few photographs and tell you a bit about the story of the place. I've got some notes with me, so I'm afraid you'll apologise if it sounds as if I'm just reading from them, but I'm no expert, but hopefully it'll give you a little bit of information. The reason I haven't got Logan with me, it's a very, very hot day. It's the middle of June. It's well, just after 10 o'clock. It's already 25 degrees. The forecast is going to be 30, 32 degrees later on. A bit hot for Logan, so he's at home keeping nice and cool. Dogs can come here providing they're kept on the lead. So, do join me. Well, let me tell you a little bit about Beaulieu Abbey itself. We've got some remains behind me if I turn round, but well, perhaps if I start off by just showing some of the remains here on the ground. Beaulieu Abbey was founded in the 13th century. King John donated the land to Cistercian monks, and for 3 centuries it flourished until the 16th century, when Henry VIII launched the dissolution of monasteries, and the abbey and estate were sold to the Earl of Southampton in 1358. Now, the abbey church, cloisters and chapter house were destroyed, but the refectory, domus, which is a dormitory, 2 gatehouses could remain as long as they were converted to secular use. So if I just turn around here, so for example, this is where the high altar was originally located, and then you can see the outline of the original abbey buildings over to my right, and we just cross this path here. They do have some signs up which can tell us what they all relate to. So chapels there, and then round here, this was where the north transept was. Okay, now we've had a look at what is no longer here. Let's have a look and see what still is here. And the wall to my left is the only surviving wall from the original abbey. And if we wander through here, we've got this delightful little, well, almost like a courtyard, but this is the cloisters. Well, looking straight ahead, this was the monks' refectory. It was spared demolition when the abbey was destroyed. It's now the parish church of Beaulieu, and as it wasn't originally built as a church, it doesn't face east-west. And this is the east side of the cloisters. Includes the chapter house, and over on the west side of the cloisters we've got the location of the monks' dormitories. And then the north wall of the cloisters is also part of the original south wall of the abbey. And this is the alleyway, or the lanes, which was once all roofed over and sheltered the monks from the elements whilst they were moving between different parts of the abbey. And this here is the lavatorium, basically a shallow wash basin that monks wash their hands in before going on to the refectory. Oh, and here we have through here, there's the grave of the 3rd Baron Montague of Beaulieu, who died in 2015. Of course, he was so instrumental in the setting up of the National Motor Museum here in the early 1970s. Well, this is the Chestnut Avenue, which was established to mark the present Lord Montague's father's 21st birthday in 1947. And each tree was ceremonially planted by a different family member or one of the senior estate staff who were held in high esteem. The trees were grown from chestnuts taken from a tree in the village. Oh, a bit different. I'm not sure what I make of those. A little disturbing, perhaps. Well, it makes you think, I guess. Now, this is the Abbey Kitchen Gardens. Not bad for a conservatory, is it? This garden was first laid out in the 1870s, and traditionally kitchen gardens are enclosed by a high wall which gives protection to the plants and obviously absorbs the heat of the sun, but unfortunately they ran rather low on funds after the north wall was completed, so the other three sides are just protected by a high yew hedge instead. Well, I'm now in the Victorian garden, although I believe this has all been planted fairly recently. And there we have the Mad Hatter's Tea Party. And apparently this topiary was inspired by the Tea Party in Lewis Carroll's Alice Adventures in Wonderland, of course published in 1865. And this depicts Alice, the Hatter and the March Hare gathered around a tea time table. Crumbs. Now this is the Lovelock tree. I think it was put here in the late 90s. Apparently anybody that gets married at Beaulieu are invited to put their own padlock on this tree. Oh, a bit different. We're now on the southern side of the estate, as it were, and this is the Palace House. And if you look at the walls with their Gothic windows, some of the stone here is rougher on one part of the house compared to the other, and that's the oldest part of the building, dating mainly from the 13th century. And it was once the great gatehouse where visitors to the abbey would have been received. After the abbey was closed in 1538, it was converted into a hunting lodge, and later in the 1730s John, Duke of Montagu, made further additions, but the only parts to survive are the small square tower with pronounced mortar joints and the base of the northeastern turret. The rest was swept away in the 1870s when the great-grandfather of the present Lord Montagu, Henry, was given Beaulieu as a wedding present by his father, the 5th Duke of Beaulieu, and he demolished most of the post-monastic additions and created the family home that's here today. The Scottish baronial style adopted by the architect Sir Arthur Bloomfield was appropriate, as Henry had grown up in the Beaulieu family home in Selkirk, Scotland. And then right at the southern end is the clock house, which dates from the 1300s and was the entrance to Beaulieu Abbey. Now, when the monastery was largely destroyed in 1538, this building actually continued to be a portal to all that happened here. In the 19th century, a clock tower was added with Westminster chimes and accommodation for a gatekeeper. And during the Second World War, the building was used by the Home Guard, who mounted a nightly watch on the nearby bridge. I think that's lovely. This is the mill pond. So the monks created this mill pond in the 13th century when they built a dam across the Beaulieu River to power their corn mill. It's very pretty. The swans in the very far background there. Lovely. Just behind the Palace House is a little display of some lovely old classic cars. I'm not an expert, but here we go. This is a De Dion Bouton, 6 horsepower, 1903, France. And this is a Humber, 8 horsepower, 1909, UK. What have we got here? An Amphicar 770, 1964, West Germany. The sports car that swims. Just walking along the banks of the Beaulieu River here. All sorts of monsters and serpents and dragons coming out of the bank. It's a bit spooky along here. Oh, lovely swan and a little baby down there. Oh goodness me, another tree carving. Look at that. Now if Logan was here, he'd love the squirrel on the branch there. Oh, look at the little woodpecker as well. Now tree carver Paul Civil has done 6 carvings along this little walk here. I think this might be the Green Man, who's got a name, by the way, name of Quirky Quirkus. And unlike the other tree sculptures, this one was actually cut from a living oak tree, albeit one which had lost most of its branches. And the entire piece is cut from the original form of the tree, except for the long staff that he's holding and obviously the painted birds. And sure enough, look, there's foliage growing from the side and up by his head. Brilliant. Now then, this is quite an important little commemorative stone here, because now I've done a video about the Rufus stone. If you haven't already seen that, do check it out. But as I mentioned in that video, a lot of people reckon that King William Rufus didn't actually die at the Rufus stone, but in fact died here. And I think most historians agree. And this is the ice house. Obviously before domestic refrigerators were introduced in the 1920s, many country estates used ice houses to preserve meat and dairy produce. Now this ice house was built in 1870 to 1871, and the entrance faces north-northeast, which is the coldest side, where it's well shaded. And inside the doorway is a pit about 12 feet deep, the bottom of which drains into the mill pond. And during winter, ice would be cut from nearby Hatchet Pond and transported here in horse-drawn wagons. And then the chamber would be insulated with straw or sawdust, ensuring that the ice remained frozen for many months, often until the following winter. And then just turning around, just over here, you can see the Beaulieu Monorail, which you'll see the rail system all the way around, but it's not in use at the moment. Right, this is the mount. I've got this isn't easy to get up. I'm going to crawl up. Oh, made it. Just about. There we go. So this is this lookout was created in the 1730s, at the same time as the ornamental canal, which terminated just behind here with the overflow running onto the river. And apparently somewhere around here, oh yes, I can see just down in front of me there, the giant or prickly rhubarb is a native of South America. Can grow up to 9 foot tall, and the leaves can reach 6 foot across. Just behind the mount is the canal, or the remains of a once elaborate water feature that was created way back in 1738. And water from woodland streams to the north was channeled to a cascade, which then collected in a pool before flowing into the canal. The water level is still maintained by a sluice, with surplus water running into Beaulieu River. You can see the canal looks pretty stagnant, doesn't it? Right, now what have we got here? Oh, another carving. That is Icy Jack Frost, and he's having a face-off with the May Queen, who's over here. And she doesn't look very happy, does she? And then a little fairy door at the bottom of the tree. Well folks, we've come to the end of our little tour around Beaulieu. I hope you enjoyed it. A slightly different video from my normal walks, I know, but hopefully it'll give you a little bit of the flavour of the place. Certainly well worth a visit. I think it's £9.50 to get in, and it's very much an all-day visit. So until we meet again, from him and me, thanks for watching, and cheerio.